Welcome to the Uncanny Academy of X-Men lore. I am Jared, and today we're talking about a couple of interesting things that I thought of. Well, first off, we're going to talk about Inferno 2 because that came out, and from what I heard, it's amazing. And second off, so when considering what I was going to talk about this week, I had a couple of interesting thoughts. Now, number one, my one thought when we reviewed Avengers versus X-Men right here is how come the Avengers don't really do much to help anti-mutant like prejudice, to dispel it? And that's going to be the topic of today's episode. Because let me put it to you this way. Here's why this doesn't make any sense to me, and why I think the X-Men work better not as their own superhero world and not in the Marvel universe. Because then you run into the issue of, okay, so you're okay with that guy who can light himself on fire because of cosmic radiation, but this guy, just because he was born this way, is not okay. One of those things where I'm like, what the heck? So we're going to be talking about that little inconsistency, and we're going to talk about why apparently the Avengers don't care about the X-Men. So anyway, we're going to start with Inferno, start off a little positive. I'm going to share the screen to this article. So in Inferno number 2 explains how Mystique outsmarted Xavier and gained an upper hand in the Quiet Council. So what we know is that Destiny, Mystique's wife, is back to life and on the Quiet Council. Now, what indicates here, okay, so spoiler ahead for any of the people that haven't read this. So it's a kickstart. So it kickstarts to the beginning of the to Inferno 1, and what they show is is a little bit of like, so as you know, when we talked about House of X powers of 10, they established that you can bring mutants back to life. Now, the one group that will not be brought back to life under any circumstances, according to Moira X, are precogs, because then they could see what their plan is and foil it. So that's why Destiny, Mystique's wife, was never brought back to life. Now, what's interesting to me now is she's brought back to life. Now, the way Mystique did this is previously Mystique was getting pretty like impatient because they had promised Mystique, work with us, we'll bring Destiny back to life. So Moira had ordered Magneto and Xavier to destroy the backups and DNA of Destiny. By backups, I mean they retconned in House of X powers of 10 that what Cerebro also does is it takes a copy of your essence, of your personality, and stores it. It's essentially like if you're backing up a computer. And then what happens is, through the DNA provided by Sinister, when the body is fully formed and everything, Xavier with the Cerebro helmet uploads the consciousness into the husk, and then it turns into the normal X-Men. That's how these people can come back to life. It's basically like cloning. What Mystique did is she disguised herself as first off, she was able to save one of the backups of Destiny and the DNA, poses Xavier, and tell the 5, who are the mutants that facilitate this whole resurrection, to revive her. So they do that. Now, and then she shows up and then is put on and is elected to the Quiet Council, which is essentially the government of Krakoa. And they have a vote, and then they're all brought on there. And then what's interesting is that Emma Frost is not so happy about this because what happens was she was originally on board because apparently either Mystique or Destiny had some like artifact that Emma was trying to get, that they gave, that they said, help us and we'll give this to you. So anyway, eventually Moira, Xavier, and Magneto need an ally on the council, so they bring Emma up to speed on what the full plan is. And Emma's like, you've lost my trust forever. That's why she turns diamond in this picture as she walks away. So the Quiet Council assembles, and then apparently Emma Frost left the council, so they need someone to replace them. So they bring in Colossus. That's essentially what happens. So that's Inferno 1. Very interested to see how the series goes. I'm going to give a more in-depth review when I get to when the book is released as a trade, and then I'll review it on the show. So anyway, to the main topic of today's episode. Now, here's the thing. Throughout Marvel's publication history, the X-Men were portrayed as a superhero team that are hated by everyone else. In other words, they're protecting the people who hate them. Now, that's all well and good. But when you have the Avengers, who pretty much are a superhero team as well, and people hate them, it starts to be kind of like inconsistent, and the inconsistencies start to show a little bit. And once again, the X-Men have been hailed as menaces to society, and the Avengers were hailed as heroes, as like the gods, pretty much. Not like that'd be the Justice League in here, but anyway. Wondering why is that? Why is there a divide now? Well, it's the only difference between the Avengers and the X-Men. Remember, is that the X-Men get their powers through genetics. That's it. Now, it's interesting how heroic groups of the Avengers barely do anything for the X-Men. In other words, to help dispel anti-mutant sentiments. Now, what do I mean by that? So I have 3 books that I picked out of my library that perfectly illustrate this point. Civil War 1, Avengers versus X-Men, and House of X Powers of 10. We've covered all 3 of these episodes of these storylines. I'll make sure I'll try to put a link to them. So anyway, I'm going to start with Civil War. I'm going to go off the trade instead of share the screen. So we're going to pick up. So this is picking up about midway through the Civil War event. Tony Stark goes to. So remember, the Civil War is in full swing. Tony Stark goes to the X-Mansion to either recruit the X-Men or get them to stay neutral. So it's interesting. So Tony Stark says. So I'm going to read you the conversation real quick. Here's what Tony Stark says. Even with 90% public backing, and that boyfriend of yours is so keen to curry favor with the White House again. And then here's Emma Frost. Perhaps we just know what it's like to be persecuted while you're fighting the good fight, Mr. Stark. Now, here's what Tony Stark responds with. Ask the moms and dads in Stanford if they think Captain America is still fighting the good fight. So in other words, Stanford was that incident where basically a bomb, a superhero and a speedball exploded and killed everyone. Now, here's what Emma Frost says. Oh, please, don't try to blackmail me with genocide. Do you really want to compare notes? Where were the Avengers when Genosha died, Iron Man? Where were you when our babies were perishing? Now, this is interesting how that's the first point that I want to bring up because it raises a very special point. Pretty much nothing happened after Genosha. Now, what's Genosha? In Grant Morrison's X-Men run, what happened is Genosha was like Magneto's island that was like a safe haven for mutants. So what happened was a pro-human terrorist basically hijacked the Sentinel and sent it there and slaughtered all of them. Actually, you know what? There's a handy note in the House of X Powers of 10 book. I'm going to look that up. But anyway, so lots of mutants were killed as a result of that incident. I'm just pulling up that. Okay. They have a infographic. Thank you, Jonathan Hickman. That has all of the crimes that have been perpetuated against mutant kind. All right. So for Genosha, Genosha, Sentinel Trask. There's like 16 million dead. That's interesting there. There was like lots of mutants that were depowered. I think it's 16 million. Yeah, 16 million dead. So, yeah, that's a bit. Yes, 16 million dead in Genosha. So, it's a very interesting little thing that Emma Frost brings up. She's like, you're so concerned about the safety of the public. You didn't say squat when my people were slaughtered. That's honestly a question, reading these stories for the show, that I've wondered many a time. And I've mentioned this to Lad when we were talking about this. Like, it is interesting how the Avengers don't seem to do anything for the X-Men, despite when the X-Men are pretty much slaughtered. All right, so now we're picking up with Avengers versus X-Men. So once again, the storyline is that the Phoenix is coming back, and so the Phoenix is coming back. The Avengers go to the X-Men's base. I forget what it's called right now. It's an island. It's Utopia, and basically say Hope has to come with us because the Phoenix is coming for her. And the X-Men say, no, she stays with us. She's a mutant. Now, so now what Cap says is, okay, hang on. I'm trying to find where that actual point was, because it was very, very tangent. Okay, there you go. So here's what happens. Captain America basically accuses Scott of not thinking clearly because it's one of his people. He's too close to the issue. So Scott goes, I'm too close to it. You're too far away from it, as you've always been. It occurs to me, see you standing there. Where were you for us? For the mutants, except now when you need something. That's a very interesting and cogent point, because the Avengers were never there for the X-Men unless the Avengers needed something. That's where that really that gets to that. That's a very interesting point that Scott brings up. And it also brings up the Avengers aren't exactly heroes either. The Avengers aren't exactly the most heroic people. Now, how does House of X, Powers of 10 factor into this? This whole story, the whole Hickman era has been, okay, so the humans don't like us, and no one will stand with us, so we have to do it ourselves. So that's why they create like the mutants in place of Krakoa and everything. And let's see, I'm trying to find. There was a really good point here, because okay, so when the Fantastic Four take Sabretooth, they ask Scott, "Are you okay? Because you're starring nations and everything." And then Scott goes, "My whole family spent our entire lives being hunted and hated. The world has told me that I was less when I knew I was more. Do you honestly think we were going to sit around forever and just take it?" So that's interesting. Is like the overall superhero community has, for the most part, allowed basically atrocities to be carried out against the mutant kind. It seems very disingenuous of what it takes to be a hero, because let me put it this way, plenty of civilians are mutants, plenty of non-heroes and non-villains. It's just very interesting to me how the Avengers shirk their in my mind, they shirk the responsibility. Being an X-Men fan, but they definitely shirk their responsibilities to protect people. And it seems to me that the Avengers could be doing a lot more. And first off, they should be doing a lot more to like stop Sentinels being constructed, because I guarantee you, the Avengers and X-Men teamed up with their combined resources, they could take out the Sentinel program, stop the Sentinel program from being created, and even, here's what they should do, even have Captain America just go before Congress and say, these mutants are good, these are bad, we'll handle the bad ones, do not build Sentinels. That's it. Because actually, what Days of Future Past by Chris Claremont establishes is that, guess what happens? The Sentinels go self-aware and kill everyone else. So you end up screwing all of us. In my mind, the Avengers are partially responsible for what's been done to mutant kind, because they just sat by and didn't do anything. Largely didn't do anything. I know there have been some like symbolic gestures, but largely they haven't really done done enough in my mind. So that's my argument, based on 3 anecdotes. It could be anecdotal evidence, I know, political science student in me, but I just felt these are 3 storylines that very, very strongly show that the X-Men aren't even really accepted with the Avengers to begin with. In fact, they're not even protected. The mutant kind is not really that protected by the Avengers. That's the weird thing for me, because the Avengers market themselves as, okay, so we're protectors of the entire world. Well, a portion of that population are mutants, bro. I don't know. It just seems pretty odd for me. If you know if you catch my drift, and I get the feeling most of you do. Let's talk more about that. That's enough for that topic. I think I don't want to start rambling on. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my theories for what's going on with Inferno. Once again, we have House of X, Powers of 10. We have the mutant nation. Now, what I think is going on is I think they're building toward a mutant civil war, kind of like X-Men Schism, but in the Hickman era, because you see the cracks are starting to form in Krakoa. I feel like eventually what's going to happen over the course of this series is that first off, like I said before, all of Krakoa is going to find out about Moira. And then when they do that, and they find out about how they've been lied to since the very beginning of Krakoa, I feel like it's going to lead to first off, a schism. And I feel like it's also, I don't think it's going to be heroes versus villains. And by villains, I mean the traditional X-Men bad guys. I think there's going to be a mix of the two, because Hickman's smart enough to realize that would be extremely like bland and expected, that, oh, it's villains on this side, heroes on this side, and then they're going to fight. You get more compelling storyline if you have a mix of heroes and villains on both sides. Some pro Krakoa because they don't see another. Like I know Magneto's going to be on the side of Krakoa. That's just a given, and I feel like Apocalypse would be on that side too. But anyway, I also I could see probably Emma Frost being against it. I get the feeling that she's leaving Krakoa. I would see maybe Jean Grey being for it because she's close to Professor Xavier and she trusts him, and Storm probably being on it. So yeah, that's why I think it's going to be a mix of the two. I don't know what Wolverine could align with. Drop in the comments and tell me which way Wolverine's going to align. I feel like maybe he could be like a neutral party, but I feel like I'm not sure he's so crazy on Krakoa. So I think he would be like on the anti-Krakoa side, particularly after he's lied to by people that he thought were friends. Remember, he has trusted Professor Xavier for so long. He even trusted Xavier when Xavier said, okay, all the villains that we've been fighting for years, come and stay with us. So I highly doubt that. I mean, if I had to pick a side, I could see Wolverine picking the side of Krakoa. But anyway, that's just my dream draft, if you will. But I feel like at the end of this, half of the X roster in this book series are going to be off Krakoa because they just decide, it's not worth it. You guys suck, and half is going to be Krakoa. That way, they can really satisfy fans that like it when the X-Men are among people, and the fans that like it that like this new Krakoan thing. I will say I was a little hesitant at first about Hickman's X-Men, because I was like, the beauty of it is that they're with humanity. But now that I think about it, I do very much like the idea of the mutants having their own state and basically saying, we're not going to take your BS anymore. It's very cool. I like it. So anyway, next episode, I think we're going to cover. We covered the Second Coming, which unfortunately was like the best X book I own. Let's see. How about we're going to cover? I think I'll cover Chris Claremont's story. We'll cover we'll cover Days of Future Past, like the original comic book storyline. That way it gives me a really good storyline to end this on. In terms of Under Two Capes, we're going to be talking about. Are we concluding Superman, Wonder Woman? No, we're doing the 4th volume of Superman, Wonder Woman. I think it's 4. Yes, 4th volume. There's 5 volumes. Once we complete the 5th one, we'll probably have a comic book debate, or we'll do another general topic, whatever you guys wish. I got something pretty cool. Okay, so I was watching a documentary on Todd McFarlane and decided I would try out Spawn comics. So I got the Spawn Compendium, which, look at how thick this book is. It's a freaking phone book of Spawn comics. So what I'm going to do also is that we may even do like a short series where like I review a few of these issues of classic Spawn. You guys let me know in the comments if you'd like that. I think it'd be a pretty cool experience, because I have no prior experience with Spawn besides like knowing of the action figures and knowing of Todd McFarlane. I think it'd be a really fun project to really learn a lot about this comic book series, because the art is fantastic. Look at that. And by the way, let me know in the comments, why do you think the Avengers haven't really done much to basically add more legitimacy to the X-Men and basically help mutant kind? Because I get the feeling that all this anti-mutant animosity that's a staple of the Marvel Universe would be significantly lessened if like Captain America came out and said, hey, listen, guys, they're fine. The X-Men are fine. Don't screw around with the X-Men. These bad guys, they're supervillains. We deal with them all the time. These guys are perfectly fine. Just because they're mutants doesn't mean they're bad guys. That's it. That's all I feel like the X-Men, that's the least I think a lot of these heroes could do, is be more of advocates for mutants. So that's just what I think. Next, let's see, what else? In terms of the Halo show, I will be starting a new series where I basically go through like the history of each of the Covenant races, like the elites, the brutes, the grunts, etc., to prepare you guys for Halo Infinite, which I saw the trailer, and I will be talking about it with Lad probably next week, and then we'll be culminating in a big episode on the Banished. And then in terms of the Star Wars show, I'm gonna watch Star Wars Visions. I haven't yet because I got about a month left of school, and it's really just taking up a lot of my time. That's why I've been kind of slacking on the podcast. I'll be watching Star Wars Visions and then reviewing them with Lad, and then we'll see where we go from there. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I think that's a good place to leave it. So I'm start rambling because I've completely lost everything to talk about. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And yeah, absolutely. Once again, let me know why you think the Avengers don't really help out the X-Men very much in terms of improving the public perception of the group. So let me know about that. And also, let me know what other episodes of the X-Men show you'd like to see. Like you want to see a character-focused episode, one on the team, one on like a particular storyline, and drop your suggestions in the comments. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you tomorrow for Under Two Capes. Anyways, have a good weekend. Class session.